Christmas and New Year's are always a time of sadness and horror for me. Not because I don't get on with any of my relatives, they're great and I've forgiven them for almost all of their crimes. No, the last decade of holidays have been a nightmare for me because I've had to prepare for yet another knife in the back of Doctor Who. I mean, who can forget the Christmas Invasion, in which the Doctor farts around in bed for 40 minutes and then at the end he wakes up and has a sword fight in his pyjamas with Bloodskull Man. That's his name, don't go and check. Partway through the fight he loses a hand, but not really, it comes back, and he wins. Yay! Woo! Oh, by the way, that hand turns out to be an incredibly important plot device 22 episodes later, so I hope you were paying attention on Christmas Day. Oh, and 16 episodes after that, the Doctor doesn't want to change his appearance while regenerating, so he pours his excess energy into the hand, and it forms a new version of the Doctor, who goes off to live with Rose in an alternate universe. Look, all I'm saying is this Christmas special has a lot to answer for, and it will not be forgiven.
No second chances.
Or who can forget the 2007 Christmas special, Voyage of the Damned, which is set on the Titanic, but in space, and Kylie Minogue is in it, and there's robot angels, and they portray the Doctor as a literal messiah figure on Christmas Day. This episode incurred criticism not only from fringe religious groups for, this, but also from the last living survivor of the actual Titanic. But a spokeswoman for the show insisted no offense was intended. Voyage of the Damned is set on a spaceship called the Titanic, and not a boat. This year, however, might at least prove to be the last bizarre Christmas nightmare I'll have to endure. Because this year it's the end of Stephen Moffat's occupation of the Doctor Who showrunner position. His regime is ending. And that means this year might truly be cause for celebration, even more than spending time with your loved ones. Let's take a look at Moffat's final episode of the show, and then speculate about what Doctor Who can get up to now that it's finally free of his grasp. It talks if you press it, but in the last take, I threw it at the camera and it hit the ground and stopped making the noise. So we're gonna have to roll that take now. If you've seen my Sherlock video, which, I think a couple of you might have done, you'll already know that Moffat's relationship with Doctor Who is lifelong. He was a fan of the original series, and he wrote the Children in Need charity spoof of Doctor Who, which was actually the first appearance of the Doctor on television for quite some time. It ended, perhaps fittingly, with the Doctor regenerating into a woman. Now, when I saw this years ago, I thought, wow, wouldn't that be nice? But I realise in retrospect, after reading some recent comments by Moffat, that this to him was meant as a joke.
And of course, my sonic screwdriver. Oh, look, it's got 3 settings. Doctor, stop that!
Like, haha, the Doctor keeps dying in silly little ways and regenerating. What's the next comical thing he can regenerate into? Oh, a woman! Haha! Aye, imagine! A woman Doctor, that's a laugh, right? Back before Moffat was showrunner, when all he'd done was work on several critically praised comedies and the best episodes of the show so far, and that one other really, really bad show, which we pretended didn't happen, we did him a favour. It was easy to interpret having the Doctor regenerate into Joanna Lumley as this cool, progressive thing, like, hey, why not have a female incarnation? But Moffat's actual intent is made much more clear by closer inspection and, of course, by his more recent statements. This isn't a show exclusively for progressive liberals. This is also for people who voted Brexit. That's not me politically at all, but we have to keep everyone on board. I haven't actually met a Scottish person before. Okay, firstly, credit to Stephen for recognising the mysterious correlation between people who voted Brexit and people who would have a problem with a female Doctor. But secondly, isn't it telling that he views casting a woman as a move for progressive liberals? Like, is that really the only reason anyone would ever think to cast a woman in this role? Moffat's approach rears its head in the special itself, with the first Doctor's, shall we say, ironic sexist comments?
Older gentlemen, like women, can be put to use.
You can't say things like that.
Look how silly this old man is being. Hey, remember casual misogyny? Hilarious. Look how far we and the Doctor have come. But writing like that loses its appeal when it's written by the man who had several great opportunities to actually cast a woman as this character, and didn't because he was worried about upsetting the kind of people who actually think like that. That's not to say I don't think Capaldi was a good choice for the Doctor. Like almost all the actors this show gets nowadays, he does a great job with the material he's given. And season 8 was almost alright, but even the episodes of the show written by other writers are affected by Moffat's poor plans as showrunner for the overall direction of the wider story. While most of the good episodes, like Mummy on the Orient Express or Flatline, get to be their own thing, there's still a lot of mucking about with this overarching story about deciding whether or not the Doctor's secretly a bad guy who kills people and it's bad, and Missy, a mysterious figure who keeps meeting up with people who died during each episode, so a fairly decent chunk of each writer's episode gets stolen to serve Moffat's inevitable nonsense season finale. Moffat's plans weaken the individual episodes not just by literally leeching away precious script pages they could have used to tell the story at hand, but it also means the individual writers can't really do anything with the Doctor or his companion for that season, Clara, because that would risk messing up whatever big character moments Moffat had planned for the end of the season. The characters couldn't really develop their relationships with each other or change as people. At best, sometimes Clara realises the Doctor's not always the best guy, and then changes her mind in the next episode and goes to hang out with him again. Capaldi and Smith's Doctors didn't get to develop or grow the way Eccleston and Tennant's did. You couldn't really have an episode quite like Dalek or The Empty Child in a show led this way, and that's especially sad because Moffat wrote one of those episodes. Moffat's approach as a showrunner inadvertently prevents these kinds of episodes and great moments that define a series from happening. And that just really sucks. The third Capaldi series was basically a soft reboot. The first episode was even called The Pilot. The Doctor gets reintroduced in a new context as a prestigious professor. Hey Steve, wouldn't it have been great if you'd written a bunch of episodes that show him reaching this point in his life? I mean, literally, like a whole season of television could have been written about how the Doctor ends up where he is and the place he's at the start of this season, and they just don't. It just starts here. That's a whole good season of storytelling you could have had. Gone. Bill was in this season, and I think she starts out as a really interesting companion, but then the series kind of is sort of generic the whole way through, so she doesn't really get to be as interesting as I think she could have been. It's clear that Moffat still has no idea how to pace a full season of television. Long story short, at the end of that season, Bill dies, sort of, and the Doctor saves the day but is critically injured in the process and he starts to regenerate. He wanders out into the South Pole and meets the First Doctor, which is where our Christmas special picks up. I will now attempt to recount in full the plot of the 2017 Doctor Who Christmas special. The story begins with that meeting again. Then, for some reason, time stops. Then, a First World War soldier, played by Mark Gatiss, because why not, is about to die. But then time stops for him as well. And then he gets pulled into the North Pole at the same time as the two Doctors. An entity reveals itself and abducts the TARDIS and demands they hand over the soldier, and then manifests a new version of Bill, who the Doctor thought had died. The Doctor doesn't want to hand the soldier over without getting more information, so instead of asking what's happening, they all run away and pretend to let the TARDIS get stolen, and then they all run off to the other Doctor's TARDIS to go to a planet we haven't seen before, where the Doctor claims we'll find the biggest database in the world. The Doctor assumes this glass lady thing is based on a real person and just needs a really big database to look them up. For some reason. The database shoots at the Doctor, but gives up when it realizes he's already dying, for some reason. It turns out to be the Dalek from that one episode 2 seasons ago where they all went into a Dalek and made it want to kill other Daleks by accident while trying to turn it good. He's just sort of hanging out here shooting Daleks whenever they turn up to shoot him. So it turns out that Daleks are all hooked up into some special mega mainframe that's the biggest database in the world. The Doctor tries to convince it to tell him who the Glass Lady is. Meanwhile, the manifestation of Bill keeps turning into the Glass Lady, and sort of messing with the soldier and the Doctor, but not actually doing anything with them. She just sort of turns into glass when they're not looking, and then nothing happens. It doesn't actually do anything. Anyway, the Dalek looks up the lady's face, and it turns out that she's the creator of a future humanity's time-traveling supercomputer designed to, get this, abduct everyone who ever dies from time, and scan their memories at the moment of their deaths, and then put them back, to build a big database of all of their memories. The Doctor realizes there was no threat this episode, and there were no stakes, gives up, and the soldier hands himself over.
Oh, it's not an evil plan. I don't really know what to do when it isn't an evil plan.
We're 40 minutes into the episode, Stephen! They go back to where he was supposed to die, but then he doesn't, because the Doctor delayed the death by a few hours, and it turns out that it's that one time all the fighting stopped at Christmas. Oh hey, they actually worked Christmas into it, and semi-justified having this random guy be the guy who gets abducted. Oh, also he's an ancestor of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, for some reason.
Captain Archibald Hamish Lethbridge Stewart.
That's a thing that Moffat keeps doing, and I'm really not sure why. The entity, which it turns out is called Testimony, brings out Nardole as well, so he can say bye to them, and then also Clara, who he forgot because of time bullshit in the last season. But Testimony gives him his memories back using magic, and then both Doctors give up and decide to regenerate out of spite. Capaldi gives a speech to his next self saying that they should be nice to people. This scene would probably be a real tearjerker if it was attached to an episode of television with any stakes or plot. And then he finally goes out the way we all wish we would, by exploding violently into light and fire while transforming into Jodie Whittaker. I have a few small questions. Why didn't the entity just explain itself and make it clear it didn't have any ulterior motives the way it happily did once the Doctor asked a Dalek to Google it for him? Why did it threaten him at all, considering that it has the memories of everyone who ever died, so it knows all about him and knows that he's a peaceful guy who doesn't need to be threatened? Why did the Doctor decide the only solution was to go find that one Dalek from 2 seasons ago and didn't get mentioned again? How does he know where it ended up? Why, if the Dalek hates Daleks and wants to kill Daleks and can clearly see down to the ground level and make fairly accurate shots, has it not killed all the de-shelled and still alive Daleks squirming around on the surface where it can definitely see them? I mean, the catchphrase is exterminate, not I'm gonna break off your outer casing and then just sort of chill out and wait for someone to come here and have a half-baked horror scene where one of them squirms on Mark Gatiss' face for 5 seconds. Why has the Dalek since also decided it wants to kill the Doctor? Why does it give up when it sees that he's already dying? And even if, for some reason, it's decided that the best thing to do is leave the dying to die without killing them, why does it actually believe he's dying, even though it definitely knows Time Lords regenerate? Because A, Daleks know how Time Lords work, that's like one of their main things, and B, Daleks apparently have a mega hive mind super database bigger than the one the Time Lords have. Next question, why did the Daleks have a comprehensive mega hive mind super database bigger than the Time Lords have, who, by the way, are the Lords of all of time? And who plugged all these bloody wires in? It doesn't even have arms, it's just a plunger and a whisk! How did he— Why a World War I soldier? Why didn't the Bill Potts entity just explain itself right away and clear everything up instead of insisting she was real? Why undo the Doctor for getting Clara in the last 5 minutes of the last run of the last episode of this incarnation even being around? Why did Testimony pretend they got away for a while and unfreeze time even though they happily froze it again partway through the scene with the Dalek? Why bring back this Dalek for like a 2-minute conversation that doesn't actually progress its story or relationship with the Doctor at all and imparts 5 seconds of exposition, and yet spend half the episode farting around on the planet getting to it? Why were there no stakes whatsoever? And most importantly, what exactly was Stephen Moffat actually trying to do? I think I figured out the answer to that question, at least. Remember The End of Time, the last special with Russell T Davies in charge, and the last one with David Tennant as the Doctor, where he saves the day and makes a heroic sacrifice and then starts to regenerate? Remember how the regeneration started and there was still like 20 minutes of the Doctor going around saying bye to everyone, even old companions who we hadn't seen for quite a while, like Rose and Martha, and we even find out what they've been up to in the interim, like that Martha and Mickey got married, and all the memorable alien creatures we met get to say goodbye and or be hit by a hammer by him one last time. I loved that stuff. It was the end of both the lead actors and showrunners' tenure on the series, so they gave a proper send-off to all the characters from that era of the show, some recurring, others small, but memorable enough that it was great we got to see them one last time. They even bring back Alonzo. Alonzo, the guy from A Christmas Special 3 years ago who we didn't see again, comes back to feature in David Tennant's Victory Lap. And that's just great. It got a little bit silly having the dying Doctor say bye to everyone before his heroic sacrifice actually kicked in, but it was kind of nice to remember how good the story had been overall until that point. It's a nice changing of the guard moment, since the old recurring cast mostly goes away after this point along with the lead actor, and the producers and lead writer went too. So it's kind of cool that this era of Doctor Who got to say goodbye to itself in this big way. It's clear that Moffat sort of wanted to do that for himself. Remember that with this episode's invention of testimony, Moffat could have written in a meeting with almost any character he wanted, ever, because testimony's literally a database of every human who has ever died. Moffat could bring anyone back to say bye to them, but then he discovered that he hadn't created any characters worth going back to and finding and reminding us about. This is a serious question. Who else from Moffat's episodes for the last 5 years does anyone actually remember? Oh yeah, I really missed the sinister puddle, or all 8 flavours of the new Dalek Gumdrop Brigade. Just kidding, everyone quietly tried to forget that redesign, and even Moffat said they were a mistake. All the memorable Moffat-written characters I'd ever want to see again happened before he was running it, so Moffat's opportunity to say bye to all of his beloved characters amounts to Clara, Nardole, Bill, the First Doctor, and what, this Dalek? Can't even say bye to Emily Pond either because Karen Gillan's too busy on Jumanji or Guardians of the Galaxy or Untitled Avengers film. Now, I really did want to answer the question of why Moffat would decide to have this Dalek and this planet in his last episode. Well, luckily, I've tuned my brain into the dunce who thinks he's smart wavelength, so I know what Moffat was trying here. The planet he goes to here is called Villengard by the Doctor in a seemingly throwaway line.
The weapon forges of Villengard.
That's actually a place referred to in a similar throwaway line previously in a part Moffat wrote for Season 1 back in 2005.
Sonic Blaster, 51st Century, Weapon Factories of Villengard.
In fact, I used that scene in the Sherlock video as an example of Moffat's good writing. It was a reference to something cool the Doctor did that we never got to see, and in retrospect it's a huge red flag as to his major problems as a showrunner, but it's a kind of line that works in a show run like this season was, where the Doctor actually does stuff and interacts with the story. So it's like Moffat's coming full circle by having the Doctor go, in the last episode he's gonna write, to a place mentioned in the first episode he wrote. This is clever, but in a very particular kind of way. All it does is make the few people who'll even get the reference feel clever, and I remember a time when Doctor Who had loftier goals than that. It's not a problem in itself that he did it or anything, it's just indicative of the structural flaws in his work that he put in the effort of making references like this to his own previous stories, but not enough to write a story that was good and worked on its own, which I think is a flaw. Moffat is so short on old familiar faces from his run to say goodbye to, that it brings back that Dalek they ran around inside of for an episode and had that scene I used in the Sherlock video as an example of really poor writing.
I am not a good Dalek. You are a good Dalek.
Because people don't believe there could be any such thing as a good Dalek.
I am not a good Dalek. You are a good Dalek.
It's so weird that the last thing Stephen Moffat is ever going to write for Doctor Who features 2 of the best and worst things of his writing that I singled out in a video I made that got really popular, shoehorned into each other. Like, is he calling me out? Is he seen the video? Are you watching this now, Stephen? Or did he really think everyone was dying to see what happened to Rusty the Dalek? I hope you all recognise the importance of the Dalek being called Rusty, by the way. It's a name from the Moffat school of clever references. It's a reference to the previous showrunner, Russ T. Davies. Rusty... The Doctor spent that episode inside the Dalek, trying to save it from within. It's a clumsy metaphor for how Moffat saw his own input on the early series. He was running around loose inside Rusty's machine, making little adjustments and making it better than it was, impacting it in some grand way. Bringing Rusty back here is Moffat's way of tipping his hat to the previous showrunner. It's a pity it takes up a huge chunk of an episode in desperate need of any actual stakes or plot.
Oh. It's not an evil plan.
Imagine sitting in front of your computer with the script for your final Doctor Who episode and looking at a screen where you have physically typed the words, "Oh, it's not an evil plan. This was all pointless." That's the place where I would do a rewrite or hope that, like, someone would stop me. Why didn't anybody stop him? And worst of all, this could actually have been some kind of neat payoff, an actual answer to the questions raised in one of the earliest Capaldi episodes. Like, has the Doctor changed as a person in the almost 3 full seasons since these characters met? Has the Dalek changed? How is their relationship going to develop? This could be a genuinely good bookend on this era of the Doctor that I didn't even see coming. Like, maybe something Moffat set up really did actually pay off satisfyingly in a clever way with this Dalek coming back and we see how much they've all changed. But time gets stopped mid-conversation when he figures out who Testimony is, and the Dalek never gets to finish the conversation, and we just sort of leave. You know, for maybe like 30 seconds, I actually believed that Moffat had set up an arc for the Doctor that was going to conclude here, and we're going to see all the ways he's changed by how he deals now with this Dalek, and what conversation are they going to have, and what. But then it just stops. It just doesn't. I can't believe I let Moffat trick me into thinking he was going to do something smart, even for a minute. I half expected Rusty to actually be an imaginary invention by the Doctor's sister to help remind him of the best friend she killed and who he remembers as a dog. No, just kidding, that would be far too stupid, wouldn't it? God, even Testimony and the Dead People database thing is a reused idea from a previous Moffat episode. The last 2 episodes of Season 8 dealt with a database of the minds of a bunch of people who died and been downloaded into it, and they thought they lived in an afterlife, and fucking hell, when that episode first came out, I thought that idea was trite and had been done before by Moffat. It was a clear rip-off of Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, 2 more episodes he wrote featuring a giant library that saves the minds and memories of dead people.
It saved them.
The longer his run goes on, the more clear it becomes that Moffat had about 4 really good ideas and kept going back to them over and over. So his finale's a wash, along with the rest of his run on the show, but at the very least, it's over. And luckily, since Doctor Who is basically uncancelable, it can weather his oncoming storm. Do you get it? That was a needless reference, I'm very clever. And make it through to the other side, and still have a chance of being good next time. That's kind of always been the beauty of old DW. You can have a bad episode, and then go somewhere else next time and do something different and try again. I think it's kind of fantastic that we have Doctor Who, this huge, long-running cultural institution. It's just lovely, so I think it's good to be optimistic about the future of the show.
Hopefully, yeah, everyone's excited as I am.
I really like Jodie Whittaker as an actress, although to be honest I've loved almost all of the actors in Doctor Who. The acting hasn't really been the problem, since they got rid of that guy with the rubbish hair people keep claiming is me in the comments of YouTube videos with him in them. I have some, shall we say, mixed opinions about Chris Chibnall, the showrunner who's taking over from Moffat. He's written some pretty good stuff for Doctor Who before, and also he was the showrunner on Torchwood, which is a shame, but he also recently created and wrote most of Broadchurch, which Whittaker appeared in heavily, and which also starred David Tennant, which is either definitive proof that the British television industry is a small room with 12 people in it working on 5 shows between them, or reassuring, since the lead writer probably has a good grasp of his new lead's strengths. It's also a really good sign that Chibnall is credited as the Broadchurch guy in pieces talking about him taking over. Broadchurch was really well received in places, and he's been able to step out of the shadow of Doctor Who and develop himself as a writer over the years. It's nice that they're not just promoting in some guy who might have written a few good episodes once but is untested as a lead writer. Instead, they're bringing in someone with experience running a pretty well-received show for 3 series. It's also probably really nice for Chibnall's career that he's not remembered as the Torchwood guy, because I think we all want to forget the Cyberwoman episode he wrote, where she's sexy and all decked out in rubber. So you know, overall, I'm positive about the new lead writer. He's proven I mean, there's a chance he could... The vice president of BBC Worldwide says it's one of her favourite episodes of Torchwood's first series, and that's a really high watermark for quality. I mean, in terms of LGBT representation, Torchwood is, on the whole, vastly superior to the main Doctor Who series.
Lots of ideas just tucked away in a document in case I don't know what to write. So.
Oh, that explains it! Chibnall is the one credited with the decision to have a female Doctor, so his gender politics can't be completely bad. They beat the Cyberwoman by spraying her with delicious sauce.
What kind of barbecue sauce?
So a pterodactyl eats it. Oh, it's gonna be rubbish, isn't it?